Looking back, it's wild how sometimes the worst heartbreaks are actually just the universe hitting the brakes, swerving you out of the way of something much, much worse. I remember thinking, when it all first exploded, that my life was over. But oh man, was I wrong. I dodged a missile. My name's Ethan. I'm 29, working as a project manager for a construction firm down in Austin. Had just snagged a promotion, felt like I was really getting somewhere. Decent salary, my own place, pretty standard, you know? The person I thought I was building all this with was Chloe. She was 27, an event coordinator, always hustling on the side with social media for local businesses. She just had this way about her. Knew how to command a room, always had her phone out, capturing some perfectly curated moment, whether it was her morning coffee or some gorgeous sunset. Me? I'm more function over form. But she was all about the presentation, and I guess opposites attract, right? We met at my buddy Sam's backyard barbecue one May, a full 2 years before everything just, vaporized. She showed up in this incredible sundress, hair perfect, even though it was practically melting outside. And she worked that party like she was hosting it herself. I remember thinking she had this magnetic energy. We ended up on Sam's porch, just talking until past midnight. Our first official date? 6 hours. Neither of us wanted it to end. 3 months in, she was practically living at my apartment. 4, maybe 5 nights a week. And I genuinely thought, this is it. This is great star. Then the little things started. I came home one Saturday, after running errands, and my living room furniture was all rearranged. She said the layout was blocking the natural flow. My bathroom counter, which used to have my toothbrush and some shaving cream, was suddenly buried under 30 different skincare products. All my stuff got crammed into one tiny drawer. My perfectly good, practical IKEA lamp? Replaced by this vintage brass thing she found at an estate sale. Looked cool, but barely put out enough light to, see. Every single time I brought it up, she'd just smile the sweet smile and say she was just making it feel like home. And I, like an idiot, didn't want to seem ungrateful, so I let it slide. Looking back, she was testing the waters. Seeing how much she could reshape my life without me pushing back. The apartment hunt happened right around our 1-year mark. My lease was up, and she casually suggested we find a place together. I was looking for practical 2-bedrooms in decent areas. Good bones, affordable. Nothing fancy. She shot down every single option. Too boring, too dark, no character. Then she found this industrial loft in a converted warehouse. Exposed brick, huge windows, all the aesthetic fixings. The rent was 40% more than I wanted to spend. When I hesitated, she hit me with, "I thought you wanted to build a beautiful life with me. Don't I deserve nice things after everything?" I had no idea what everything even meant. But I signed the lease. We agreed on 50-50, but somehow, I ended up covering utilities, internet, parking, groceries most weeks. The math just never balanced out, but she had this way of making me feel cheap for even mentioning it. For about 18 months after that, things actually felt pretty solid. We adopted a little orange tabby, Leo, who became obsessed with sleeping on my laptop. We had Friday night dinners with friends, weekend trips out to the Texas Hill Country, long talks about kids, future plans, where we'd travel. She talked about weddings constantly. Showed me Pinterest boards of venues and color schemes, floral arrangements. Stuff I honestly didn't care about, but I'd nod along because she seemed so happy. I really, truly believed we were building something real. Then one night in October, I came home from an absolutely brutal day on site. Some permitting issue had set us back 2 weeks and cost the company a chunk of cash. I was exhausted, just wanted to eat and zone out. Chloe was sitting on the couch, the serious expression I'd never seen before. Hands folded in her lap, like she'd been rehearsing. "We need to talk," she said. And my stomach just dropped. She launched into this whole speech about needing to find herself, about missing out on experiences, needing space to grow as an individual. I asked, "Is there someone else?" She looked genuinely offended. "I can't believe you'd accuse me of that," she said, making me feel like I was the unreasonable one. She painted it as this mature, necessary decision, like she was doing us both a favor. Here's the part that, looking back, should have told me absolutely everything. She didn't want to move out. She suggested we keep living together for 7 more months, until the lease ended. Said it would be too expensive for either of us to break it early. The penalty was $4,000, and she made it clear her income couldn't handle that kind of hit. I agreed. The alternative was paying her share and mine, or eating the entire penalty myself. And honestly, I was too shocked to think straight. So, we became exes living under the same roof. She framed it as us being mature adults who could handle an unconventional situation. The first week after the breakup, she started coming home late. Not midnight late. More like 2 or 3 in the morning. She'd leave around 8 or 9 at night, always dressed up, heels and makeup, outfits I'd never seen her wear when we were together. She'd slip back in smelling like men's cologne that was definitely not mine. When I asked where she'd been, she'd mention work events or helping friends. The thing is, I knew her friends. None of their schedules matched her stories. None of it added up. But we weren't together anymore, so technically, it wasn't my business. I stopped asking questions. I started rebuilding my life. I picked up photography again, something I'd dropped in college. Started taking my camera out on weekends, shooting landscapes at Enchanted Rock or architecture around the city. I made plans with Sam and our other friends, poker nights, fishing trips. Just getting out of that apartment as much as possible. I wasn't sitting around waiting for Chloe to change her mind. I was moving forward. And I think that's what she didn't expect. Around late November, maybe 6 weeks after the breakup, I met Sophia. She was a nurse at the hospital near my office. We ran into each other at a coffee shop where I'd started working some mornings, just to avoid the weird tension at home. She ordered her coffee black. No sugar, no fancy flavors. When the barista tried to upsell her, she just said, "No thanks. I'm good." I liked that. We started talking. I found out she worked night shifts in the ER, which explained the 2 p.m. coffee run. She was direct. No games, no performative social media presence. Just a real person with a demanding job and a dry sense of humor. I mentioned my living situation on our second coffee meetup. Told her I was sharing an apartment with my ex until the lease ended. She just nodded. "That sounds complicated," she said, "but I appreciate you being upfront. No drama, no judgment. Just acknowledgement." We started seeing each other casually. Lunch dates near the hospital, walks at Hamilton Pool Preserve when her schedule allowed. Nothing rushed or forced. It felt easy. In a way things with Chloe never had. Like I didn't have to perform or prove anything. I really thought I was handling everything maturely. Keeping my personal life separate. Respecting the weird boundaries of living with an ex. I thought I was being smart. I wasn't being smart. I was being naive. And what happened next made me realize that Chloe's late nights weren't about finding herself at all. Her late nights became a pattern I could set my watch to. Chloe would leave around 9, dress like she was going to some upscale event, and roll back in between 2 and 4 in the morning. The apartment door would click open. I'd hear her heels on the hardwood, and she'd tiptoe to her room like I was supposed to be asleep. I actually started keeping a small notebook. Nothing obsessive, just dates and times. Because the whole situation just felt off, and I needed to know if I was losing my mind, or if it was truly as weird as it seemed. Thursday, she got home at 3:45. Friday at 2:15. Monday at 4:30. the pattern was consistent. The excuses were not. She'd say networking events for work, which made zero sense because event coordinators aren't networking at 3 in the morning. She'd mention helping friends, but the friends changed every time, and the details never lined up. Once, she said she'd been at a late dinner that turned into drinks, but she came home smelling like men's cologne. Something woody and expensive. It definitely wasn't from any restaurant. I didn't confront her because, well, we weren't together. I didn't want to look like the jealous ex. But I also wasn't stupid. Something was going on. And she was putting zero effort into hiding it from me. I just focused on my own thing. Photography became my escape, and I got serious about it. I'd wake up early on weekends, drive out to a spot in the hill country or up to San Marcos, and spend hours shooting sunrise, nature scenes. I even started a small Instagram for it. Nothing major, just a place to dump my work and maybe connect with other photographers. Sam noticed the change in me. Said I seemed lighter. And he was right. Letting go of Chloe mentally, even while still living with her physically, it just freed up a space I didn't know I'd been missing. I was sleeping better, eating better, actually enjoying my life instead of walking on eggshells around someone else's mood. Sophia and I kept seeing each other, and it progressed naturally into something more serious. She'd text me after her shifts. We'd meet for breakfast at this little diner near the hospital, where she'd tell me insane stories about ER patients who'd done incredibly dumb things. She met Sam and some of my other friends. She fit right in without trying too hard, didn't need to be the center of attention. One night, after dinner at my favorite taco place, she asked if the living situation with Chloe bothered me. I told her honestly that it was temporary and weird, but manageable. She just said, "Just don't let her mess with your head." And I promised her I wouldn't. I really believed I had it under control. December rolled around, and Sam invited a bunch of us to this rooftop holiday party at a bar downtown. I brought Sophia. Figured it would be a good chance for her to meet more of my circle in a relaxed setting. The place was great, heat lamps, string lights, decent music, good crowd. We'd been there maybe an hour when Chloe walked in. She was wearing this red dress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. Hair and makeup done like she was attending a gala. I hadn't mentioned the party to her, but Sam was a mutual friend, so it wasn't surprising she got an invite. What was surprising was how she made a direct line toward Sophia and me the second she spotted us. She came up smiling, all touchy, putting her hand on my arm like we were still together. She introduced herself to Sophia with this sugary tone that felt immediately aggressive. She made sure to say she was the ex, emphasized the 2 years we'd been together, and made some comment about how some people move on faster than others. Sophia stayed polite, but I could see her jaw tighten ever so slightly. Chloe noticed it too. That's when I realized this wasn't a coincidence. Chloe had come to this party specifically because she knew I'd be here. And she dressed for battle. She didn't leave us alone the entire night. Every conversation we had, Chloe would just drift over and insert herself, bringing up inside jokes from our relationship or memories of trips we'd taken. Performing nostalgia like it was a weapon. She'd touch my shoulder, laugh too loud at things that weren't funny, position herself between me and Sophia in group photos. At one point, she grabbed my hand to show someone the watch she'd bought me for our first anniversary, and I pulled away harder than I meant to. Sophia excused herself to get a drink, and I could tell she was giving me space to handle it, but I also felt like I was failing some kind of test. Around 11 o'clock, Chloe cornered me near the bar when Sophia was in the restroom. The music was loud enough that no one else could hear us, and her whole demeanor just changed. She got quiet, vulnerable. Looked up at me with this expression I'd seen 100 times before when she wanted something. She said maybe she'd been too hasty with the breakup. That she'd been doing a lot of thinking. That maybe we'd given up too easily on what we had. I looked at her. Standing there in that expensive dress, smelling like someone else's cologne for what was probably the 3rd time that week. And something just clicked. She didn't miss me. She didn't want me back. She just didn't want me moving on without her permission. I told her, "You don't miss me, Chloe. You miss control." Her face went cold instantly. Like a switch flipped. She said, "We'll see about that," in a tone that made my skin crawl. Then she smiled, touched my arm one more time, and walked away to rejoin the party like nothing had happened. Sophia came back a minute later, asked if I was okay. I lied and said everything was fine. But it wasn't fine. And the look Chloe gave me before she left that night told me this was far from over. The next morning, my phone was absolutely destroyed. 12 missed calls from Chloe, all between midnight and 3 a.m. A string of texts that started apologetic and ended angry. Voice messages I didn't even bother listening to. I was making coffee when she came out of her room. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying. She immediately started in on me. She said she thought I'd wait for her. That she didn't think I'd actually move on. That she needed time, but didn't think time meant I'd be with someone else. I just stared at her, waiting for the part where any of this made sense. I laid it out simply. She broke up with me. She asked for space. She'd been going out every night with whoever she was seeing, coming home at 4 a.m. smelling like someone else. She didn't get to put me on hold like a library book and expect me to sit on a shelf, waiting. She tried to interrupt, but I kept going. I told her she'd made her choice. I'd respected it. And now she had to respect mine. She called me cold. Said I'd changed. Said the Ethan she knew would have fought for what we had. I told her the Chloe I knew wouldn't have played games for 3 months and expected me not to notice. She locked herself in her room after that. I didn't see her for the rest of the day. I thought maybe that was the end of it. That she'd finally accept reality, and we'd just run out the next few months in cold silence until the lease ended. I went to Sophia's place that night. Told her everything that happened at the party and that morning. She listened without judgment. She asked if I wanted her to step back until my living situation sorted itself out. And I told her, absolutely not. Chloe didn't get to dictate my life anymore. But 2 days later, something happened that changed everything. I was home alone, watching a game on the iPad we'd bought together. The one that was technically shared, even though she never used it. A message notification popped up at the top of the screen. I saw the name Mark, and a preview that made my stomach drop. I opened the Messages app, and what I found there destroyed every assumption I'd made about the breakup. About the timeline. About everything. The messages went back 5 months. 5 months. That meant they started 2 weeks before Chloe broke up with me. Which meant everything she'd said about needing space and finding herself was complete fiction. I sat there scrolling through conversations that got progressively more explicit. Photos I'm not going to describe. Videos that made it clear this wasn't some emotional incident that later turned physical. This was calculated. There were hotel names, times they'd meet up, mentions of conferences that I now realized were covers for weekend trips. One message from early November made me physically sick. Her complaining about having to keep quiet when she got home because her roommate might hear. Roommate. That's what I'd become in her story. The worst part wasn't even the content. It was the dates. I cross-referenced them with my notebook, and every single late night matched up with messages to Mark. The Thursday she got home at 3:45? She'd been at the Hilton downtown with him. The Friday at 2:15? Some bar in East Austin, followed by his place. She'd been lying to my face for months, while sleeping in the room next to mine. And I'd been too trusting to see it. I took screenshots of everything. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I needed proof that I wasn't crazy. That this was real and documented. Not something she could rewrite later. I started paying closer attention after that. I noticed she had a pattern. Certain nights of the week, she'd get dressed up. Certain excuses she'd rotate through. I set up a basic security camera in the living room. One of those cheap ones you can get online. Angled at the front door. I told myself it was for package theft, since our building had issues with that. But really, I wanted a record of her coming and going. The footage confirmed what the messages had already told me. She wasn't just seeing Mark. There were at least 2 other guys I could identify from the times they'd walk her to the door, or she'd leave with them. She'd turned our apartment into her base of operations for whatever this phase of her life was. I did some digging on Mark through social media. The kind of surface-level research anyone can do. Took me about 20 minutes to find out he was married. His wife, Sarah, had a public Instagram. Lots of photos of them together. Pictures from their wedding 3 years ago, posts about their dog, their house in the suburbs. She had no idea what her husband was doing. Same as I hadn't known what Chloe was doing. I sat with that information for 2 days, going back and forth on whether it was my place to say anything. Finally, I decided Sarah deserved to know. The same way I wish someone had told me before I wasted 2 years. I sent her a message through Instagram. Kept it factual and non-emotional. Included dates, screenshots with names visible, but the explicit content cropped out. Enough that she could verify it herself if she wanted. I told her I was sorry to be the one telling her this, that I'd want someone to tell me, and that she could reach out if she needed any other information. Then I sent it. And tried not to think about the bomb I just dropped into someone else's life. She read it within an hour, but didn't respond. I figured that was the end of my involvement. 3 days later, someone was pounding on my apartment door at 9 p.m. I looked through the peephole and saw a guy I didn't recognize. Mid-30s, dressed in business casual. Face red with anger. I opened the door with the chain still on, and he immediately started yelling. Asking if I was Ethan, calling me a liar, a homewrecker. It took me a second to realize this was Mark. And he was here to intimidate me into retracting whatever I'd told his wife. I stayed calm. Told him through the chain that I'd documented everything. That his wife deserved the truth. And that he should leave before I called the police. He kept yelling, trying to push the door open, saying I'd shattered his life over nothing. That's when Chloe came out of her room. She went pale the second she saw Mark at the door. And he turned his anger on her immediately. They started arguing right there in the hallway. Him accusing her of running her mouth. Her trying to calm him down. Both of them completely forgetting I existed for a minute. He yelled that she'd told him she was single. That she played him just like she played me. That his wife had kicked him out and taken everything. Then he pulled out his phone, opened up a text thread, and started reading messages out loud. Her telling him she loved him. That she'd wait for him to leave his wife. Promising him a future together. Chloe tried to grab his phone, but he yanked it away. Told her she could live with the consequences of her lies. And stormed off down the hallway. Chloe just stood there, shaking. I closed the door. I contacted our apartment management the next day, with documentation. The cameras had caught Mark's outburst, plus footage of multiple unauthorized guests staying overnight, which violated our lease terms. I had records of noise complaints from neighbors about her late-night returns. The management company reviewed everything and sent Chloe a lease violation notice. Gave her 30 days to vacate, or they'd pursue eviction. They offered me a new lease for a smaller unit at a reduced rate if I wanted to stay. No penalty for breaking the current one early. I took it immediately. Chloe tried apologizing after the Mark incident. Said things had gotten out of hand. That she'd made mistakes, but never meant to hurt me. I didn't engage. I'd gone through her social media posts from the past few months and noticed something else. A bunch of her aesthetic photos, the ones she posted from nice restaurants and hotels, had branded items visible in the background. Tablets with her company's logo, folders, swag from corporate events. She'd been using company resources for her personal life, probably expensing dinners and hotel rooms as business costs. I compiled everything into an anonymous email and sent it to her company's human resources department, with timestamps and screenshots. They could decide what to do with it. 2 weeks later, I heard through mutual friends that she'd been let go from her job. The official reason was restructuring, but the timing seemed pretty convenient. She tried calling me from different numbers, leaving voicemails about how everything was falling apart. How she was staying on her friend's couch. How she'd made mistakes but didn't deserve this. I blocked every number. She showed up at the apartment once to get the last of her stuff. Asked about Leo. Suggested we could share custody of the cat. I asked her when the last time she'd cleaned his litter box was. When she'd taken him to the vet. When she'd bought his food. She couldn't answer any of it. Because she'd never done those things. Leo was mine. Same as the furniture she'd rearranged and the life she tried to control. Sophia helped me move into the new place in January. Smaller apartment, better energy. No ghosts of a failed relationship haunting the rooms. Chloe sent one final text from a number I hadn't blocked yet. Said she was sorry for everything. That she understood if I hated her. That maybe someday we could talk. I replied with one sentence. You didn't change. You just don't like consequences. Then I blocked that number too. I ran into Sarah a few months later at a coffee shop. Complete coincidence. We talked for a bit. Awkward at first, but then easier. She'd filed for divorce, sold the house, was rebuilding. She thanked me for telling her, even though it hurt. Said not knowing would have been worse. We stayed in touch occasionally after that. Nothing deep. Just two people who'd survived something similar. Sophia and I got engaged in November. Exactly 1 year after that rooftop party where Chloe had tried to sabotage us. Simple proposal. Nothing elaborate. Just honest and real. We adopted a second cat a month later, named him Pepper, and he immediately bonded with Leo like they'd always been brothers. Life got quiet. In the best way possible. No drama, no games, no wondering where someone was at 3 a.m. Just simple, honest stability with someone who didn't need to perform love, because she actually felt it. Chloe still exists somewhere out there. Probably creating a new aesthetic for a new life. But that's not my problem anymore. Looking back, the biggest lesson here is that actions reveal character in ways words never can. Chloe's whole speech about needing space was theater. A script designed to keep me as an option while she explored others. The moment consequences arrived, she wanted sympathy for problems she created. Real growth means accepting that some bridges burn because you lit the match. And no amount of apologies can rebuild what deliberate deception destroyed. When someone shows you who they really are through their choices, believe them the first time, and protect your peace accordingly. What would you have done differently in this situation?